Hi, I'm Josanne Wright Callender, author of the Happy Little Garbage Truck picture book. Well, this week we've been talking about social emotional learning and skills and how it relates to self esteem. And today I'm going to take you a little bit back in time when, as educators, we were mostly focused on teaching the whole child. Now, that hasn't really changed, but there is more emphasis on the whole child. And in keeping with that, we were introduced to Bloom's taxonomy. It's Benjamin Bloom created this taxonomy of learning in the 50s. And parts of his pyramid, you've probably seen Bloom's taxonomy pyramid, had three specific parts. There was the cognitive learning, and we called that the cognitive domain, and that was the area of learning that really focused on cognitive academic learning. There was the affective domain, which focused on the social and emotional part of the child, and also the psychomotor domain, which was the kinesthetic, had to do with fine and gross motor skills. And each one of these areas were devised by Benjamin Bloom and his collaborators in the 50s and 60s. Well, the affective domain in the social emotional area seemed to be more relegated to when I started the special ed field, whereas in recent years, it's become more and more apparent that all children benefit by developing in this area as well. And I love the affective domain because I believe that it gets to the soul of the child, how they feel about themselves, how they feel about others. And it's just the more inner intrinsic part of what makes a child feel good. Um, the reason why it was not as emphasized in the academic or the cognitive domain in general ed is because a lot of people felt that this in areas like science, technology, math, there are no social emotional components to those topics and those subjects. However, we know that anytime you are talking about making an emotional response, such as how do you feel about this, and what is your thinking about that, and also risk taking, all of these are emotional decisions because it has to do with that person's choices. So it all involves social emotional learning. And my own idea is that I really believe that when we focus on social emotional learning and the affective domain in particular, we're actually helping the child to develop the motivation to work to their best ability. Because that was my focus when I first started education studies and practices. I wanted to find out, how can you motivate a child who really comes to school as almost like a blank slate, a bucket to be filled, if they're not really interested in school. And so my motivation throughout my career was, how do I get that child motivated? And that's working through their own feelings about themselves, and what really, what's the little switch that turns on their light bulb in looking at education differently. And it's different for every child. So the valuing and responding that a child does in any topic, because they may be more inspired by art than they are by math. And so you create a math type of game that includes artwork and maybe drawing their problem out, because they tend to be a more visual child. So these are some of the intrinsic qualities to the affective domain. And in particular, I thought about the inner or the internal locus of control. If a child feels as though they can change things, then they have an internal locus of control. It's up to them to find a strategy or create a way to um, prevail in this one area where they have had challenges. But if they have an external locus of control, it's something outside of themselves and they can't really prevail. They can't really overcome it. But with the affective domain, we find ways to motivate a child so that they can see that they always can build on their strengths to achieve what they're trying to achieve in a topic or a subject area. So self-esteem, once again, is the basis for and the foundation for character development and motivation. Well, tomorrow we're going to talk a little bit about how the five components of self-esteem and social emotional learning kind of interrelate. And we've talked a little bit about this in the past, but I'm going to reflect on some of those previous topics with the five core components of social emotional learning. And I look forward to seeing you tomorrow. Thank you so much.